baseball company, this is Caffeine and Curveballs.
All right, so what's going on, Mike? How we doing? What's going on kind of in your realm now at Charlotte? So if you can kind of, jump into that.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably like the slower part of the fall right now. Recruiting's over, fall ball's over. Kind of post-fall assessments have been done, and at least on the pitching side, guys have been deloading or so for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and we're kind of starting to on-ramp a little bit. Still nothing crazy. They're not off the mound yet. But, yeah, kind of just planning out that throwing program and really just lifting for them. But the hours are a lot shorter. So it's kind of weird compared to what it was like, a month ago where it was just like something going on every second. So it's been kind of nice, change of pace.
That grind for coaches in the fall is unbelievable. I can only imagine, man.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. It's I'll definitely say that's like the biggest I don't know, something that was, I don't want to say shocking to me when I first started coaching. I just had no idea about like all the work outside of just the field alone. And I think most people who got into coaching from who I've talked to kind of say the same thing. Just like how much responsibility is outside of just coaching your guys. But it's fun though. It's a lot of fun, and it's like good responsibility. So it's fun.
You jumped right in, right? You jumped right in after your playing career? I
did jump right in. Yeah.
How did that come about? Like that's a really quick jump, and obviously you've found yourself in quite the position, man. Like there aren't a lot of guys that are able to jump right from playing into being a Division I pitching coach. How did that kind of come to fruition? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, just to be completely honest too, like I got really lucky. I got really lucky. Coach Woodard, who's our head coach, he recruited me to UNC when he was a pitching coach there. And so this is when I was still at Nyack, my junior college. And so I went there, played there for 2 years, graduated, and then a grad transfer to Charlotte in 22 and played for him. And, Austin Miney was a pitching coach. And, just like working with those guys and kind of seeing how the coaching staff kind of just like went about their business. I don't know. There's something like really appealing to me about that. Like they were all really close. Like they all like were super active. They were very, very smart, well-spoken, very passionate about like winning, but also growing the game and helping their players. And, that's kind of just something I didn't want to leave, I can't really say that I really wanted to go into coaching. Like that wasn't like plan number one by any means. But it kind of felt like the more I was around those guys, the more I was around, learning about it, the more interesting it became. And, after I graduated, played in the draft league for a little bit and, got a call probably halfway through the summer saying that, Coach Miney was probably going to take a job with the Orioles. And, Coach Woodard asked if I wanted to be the pitching coordinator. And I jumped on it right away. It was kind of a no-brainer. So definitely lucky in that regard. I understand, how fortunate I am. But just trying to soak it in every day, honestly.
Yeah, Miney's the man, dude.
He is the man. He's the man.
Miney stays the man. But, I mean, for me that I want to hear about from your perspective on is like going from player to very next year. What has been kind of some of you've had with changing the dynamic, if that makes sense, going from a player where you can shoot the shit with everybody and then now you're a coach, like, so what is like the struggles or kind of the nuances of it that you've seen and experienced so far?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I thought that was going to be the toughest thing. It's like, do I need to be like some like act like some authority now that I'm on the staff and do whatever? But I think the best coaches that I had, like I could go down a whole laundry list. I've been really lucky to have like really, really good coaches my entire playing career since I was like 8. But the best ones I think were, they understood that they were already on like a platform or already had like authority, and they didn't try to enforce that any more than they needed to. And that's really what I tried to do. Like, I didn't try to like be, you know, try to put a wedge between me because I was a coach. Like, I tried just being on their level because I was there last year. It's almost like silly for me not to use that perspective to help them. And the respect part, it kind of came with it. You know, they knew I was going to do whatever they can to help them get better. And, you know, a lot of them played with me the year before. And so I think I built that repertoire. And so, yeah, it was kind of cool because I didn't really feel like I needed to be like, you know, a coach or so to speak. Like, I was just like myself, you know, I was just like a 24-year-old guy, and I didn't try to be anything I wasn't, I guess. And I think, you know, and when you're like that and guys kind of feel that, information spreads a lot easier. And, you know, they kind of know you have their best interests at heart.
I kind of understand that too, but and I don't have the coaching, I guess, stature that you have being at University of Charlotte, but, you know, in working at the pitching development or velocity development program that I'm part of, I went through those trial and errors where I had that authority for the first time and I tried to implement it right off the rip, and it didn't really resonate with all the kids. But taking a break from it and coming back to it and realizing that the authority that you talk about is established, it makes it a lot easier to have, like, or I guess not to have, but to be on their level, as you said, and understanding that they trust you. And the more you build that trust, the more honest that they can be with you, the more honest that you can be with them. And I think that's paramount in really any coaching player relationship as a whole. So, you know, I guess, you know, you mentioned something in the first answer that kind of caught my attention. I wanted to touch on it a little bit more. You know, you talked about post-throwing assessment or post-fall assessment. Sorry. I guess that would imply that means there's probably a pre-fall assessment. And I'm interested to know if you can talk about, or if you can elaborate on kind of what goes into those assessments and overall kind of what your coaching philosophy is, not only now as we enter into the holidays, but for the year as a whole.
Yeah, I think like a very umbrella way to look at it is just like we just try to collect as much data as possible that's high quality and make
Smart.
as good of decisions as possible from it.
Yeah.
And so whether that's going to be even just like movement screening, like right when you get on campus, like understanding your range of motion, understanding how your scap delivers a shoulder, which delivers a baseball, understanding yourself as an athlete, as a mover. And then it's, you know, the fun stuff is kind of like when we get into like the fall, and then, you know, we got the TrackMan up, we got the portables up, and we're like, okay, now we can see what pitch shapes are like. We can see which pitches get most swings and misses. We can use, you know, the Stuff Plus models that we have, and then kind of just see like in a vacuum how good the pitch is and grade it out, and then actually use it within, you know, a competitive setting. And you know, it's great. Like that's, you know, we kind of call it like you're kind of like your own scientist. You know, it's like you experiment, you know, you might fail here and there, but then you collect data, you iterate, and then you try again. And that's really what we try to push in the fall, especially, is like, you guys are all good enough to be here. You guys are all really talented baseball players. Like everyone here has something really unique about them that's led them here. And so it's kind of like capitalizing on their strengths, but, you know, letting them like understand that it's okay to fail in this like environment, you know, like fail productively, I should say.
Yes,
so that
that's a super important element. Yes,
yeah.
That is a super important element. That's incredibly, like, that's fascinating that you guys are able to have access to all that technology. And I know, Trey, you may have at Lipscomb a little bit. I went to a Division II, so we didn't have any of that. Our philosophy was, you know, throw the fastball low and away, and chances are you're going to get a ground ball. So that's kind of what I operated with for 4 years. But and it worked, you know, I guess credit to it. It worked. But that's really cool. That's a really cool opportunity for those players. If there's any high school guys listening, that's an incredibly cool opportunity for those players to have that exposure to that technology right off the rip like that. That's going to set you up for not only the 4 years at Charlotte, maybe, you know, 5, provided there's, you know, an extra year in there somewhere, but the years beyond that as you work yourself into pro baseball. Because, I mean, you will. If you take advantage of the opportunity, you will.
Yeah, especially with the mention of the stuff models.
Yes.
kind of the first method I've ever heard of colleges using it was you just name dropping it right there. Had no clue. Like what Max said with me being at Lipscomb, I was blessed with the coaches I had were the people that were striving to be in pro ball. They didn't want to be in college for 5 years or longer. So like I got that kind of aspect of it where like those guys are pro ball coaches, not like that we have the I mean we had TrackMan, but the access to like all the models, all these assessments, all the biomech stuff, like that extra jump, you know what I mean? So that's actually really cool to hear that you guys not only have the tech and then the people, for example, like mining, but that extra, 9 yards of the models and then actually implementing the data and putting it together. So that's fucking sick.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, Coach Woodard even talks about all the time. It's like shit, man. Like we don't have all this stuff for us not to use it. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we spend $100,000 on technology every year. Like we better use it, and
That is quite the
we
budget.
do. It
That
is.
is quite
So
the budget. Holy cow. So you guys are kind of entering so when I looked at like prospective coaching, I always looked at the college schedule and I think that you guys are entering the hardest time of the year. Actually, we're probably in the middle of it. From a pure player development standpoint, how difficult are the 5 weeks that were, or maybe even the 6 weeks that we're in right now, where guys are getting away from campus, we're entering the holidays. It's easier to have those days off that just kind of slip away from you. And it really doesn't show itself until you get yourself back onto campus. And at that point, you need to be ready to go game action 6 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the same problem that every coach probably in America feels in Division One baseball and all levels. Honestly, it's like you send your guys away for 5 weeks. Like, how do we make sure they're putting in the right work? And a lot of it is planning. And so, in terms of throwing program, it's already been made. Like they know what they're going to have for throwing every single day until they come back in January. And with that, we can add our lifts on top of it. And so, in terms of the planning, like you plan, but like you expect some margin for error in terms of guys are going to go on vacation, guys are going to get sick.
Right.
Might not feel great one day. And the most important thing, I guess I could take away even from last year when I was a player is just like communication.
Yes.
Like open communication, really no fear to just like, let me know like, hey man, like I got 3 hours of sleep last night. Like I'm supposed to throw my first high intent bullpen today. Like, should I push it a day back? I'd be like, yes. Like you 100%.
Should. Yeah.
So yeah, stuff happens is what I'm just trying to say. So like you plan as good as you can, but you kind of know that there's going to be stuff that comes up. Hopefully it's nothing, too serious or anything like that. But, it's really just communication. So you can just, go from there and then work your way around it.
What do you guys use to program throwing? Are you guys using Track?
We do use Track.
Smart.
We do use Track.
That's been the best. I've tried Excel, I've tried Bridge, I've tried Track. Track is far and away the easiest one. And especially since you guys are using TrackMan, I guess that was kind of a dumb question because you can sync all the TrackMan data back to Track itself. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's that's a great resource.
We could talk about your career too if you want, because honestly, I did some research and not a ton. I didn't stalk every single ounce of your career, but I got to tell you, the first thing that popped out to me when I was reading one of the bios, it said you were a 4-sport high school athlete and you played the cello, and there's one more. It's not coming to me right now, but you played the cello and the
drums.
Cello and the drums. So you were balancing 6 things that you need to be incredibly good at in order to have. Well, it's impressive.
They gave me too much credit on the bio. I'll just tell you that right now. I think it was a little bit of fluff because I played the cello for like a handful of years, but I stopped once like high school hit.
Okay. All right.
I think drums I played for like 2 or 3. And yeah, so you can cast those aside. Those aren't anything to really
we'll pump some air in your tires, man. We'll count that.
I appreciate it. But yeah, the sports, it was actually was actually cool because I actually played football, basketball, baseball my freshman year. And I think after my freshman year, I kind of knew that baseball was the direction I really wanted to go in. Um, and after getting injured in football, it was kind of like, all right, I should probably do something else within the fall time. Um, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it for the golf team. Like I'm just gonna try it and just see what happens. And I ended up making like the JV golf team, which is awesome.
That's
And
sweet.
so that year I actually played golf, basketball, and baseball instead of football. And I mean, dude, to this day, like JV golf, sophomore year of high school was like the most fun I've ever had playing high school sports. Like
Really?
yeah, I have no shame in saying that either. Like it was like you paid $25 for the tryout fee, you played 9 holes, you took your scores, decided if you made the team or not, and then every day after that was 9 holes of golf, like for
That's
an
pretty
entire
cool.
fall, and it was the best. Like the guys are awesome, our coach is amazing, and we just had so much fun.
You still play a little bit?
A little bit. I don't have as much time as I used to, but I'll
You don't have time
still.
for 9 holes a day?
I wish. I wish that'd be cool.
It's a good skill to keep in baseball.
It is.
Rotators rotate, man.
Yeah.
What position did you play in football?
I was a tight end and defensive end.
You're going both ways. No shit. You got hurt. That workload's through the
Oh
roof.
yeah. Oh yeah. It was. I should have put like a pulse on my knee or something. I would have probably saved my workload.
So, so you went to NIAC. You mentioned NIAC. I believe that's. Oh man, what's the acronym? It's North Iowa ACC. So it's community
Area.
college. What's the area? Northern Iowa area, or North
Yeah.
Iowa area community college. What took you there? What were the offers out of high school like? Was there that chance to go D1, and did you pass on that leading up to it?
Yeah. So I mean, I was I wasn't a very big prospect out of high school. Just to be kind to myself, I was I walked on actually to Creighton University my
Okay.
freshman year of college, and so I got there in the fall, and I was throwing 81, 83, and I was a freshman right-hander on no money throwing 81, 83.
Sure.
So it's kind of like you can kind of see where this path is going. Um, and that's they told me I didn't make the team at the end of the fall, and I was like, all right. So I know I can pitch. I know I can spin the curveball pretty well. I can throw strikes. Um, the lagging thing here is velocity. And the previous summer I was actually at Driveline. So that was 2016 summer. It was my first time at Driveline. I think I was there for 2 weeks. Onboarding with actually onboarded with John Creel. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. John's a man. And so I onboarded with him that summer. Went to Creighton. Things didn't work out. Stuff happens. And then I was talking to my dad, and I was like, yeah, like I need to go somewhere that I know is going to help me get better and throw harder. And I wanted to play. And so, JUCO was the best option. And, NIAC was kind of blowing up on Twitter a little bit because they were kind of one of the first few schools to like implement, driveline plyo balls. And, from me training at driveline the previous summer, I was like, this is the way. Like, I knew this is what I needed to do for my arm to feel good, for me to hopefully throw harder. And, it was like, I don't know if you want to call it like an epiphany moment, I guess, but
Yeah,
just
I think
understanding
we've both been there at one point or another. We've both been there, so I know
we've had, because even from what you're going on right now, like your story, it's kind of similar, but like same pathway as I had. Same thing, like freshman year, went for a fall. Whatever happens, between the two of us, you know what I mean? Like same kind of timeline we're sharing, and same reason I went to Howard is what you're saying, except I drive the car a little bit more. You know what I mean? As far as like what you guys were doing, for me at Howard, it was more just straight, hey, if you want to do something, we'll let you do it.
Yeah.
And that was the way I took, was very similar to yours, instead of going somewhere where they did do it, if it makes sense. Like that was kind of just the best option I had personally.
Right. Yeah. I mean, man, it's I mean, that's actually really cool. What was so what happened? What happened your first semester?
So mine was I went to the University of Evansville out of high school, passed up on a couple other mid majors, and it's funny because I also had offers from Howard McLennan because in high school I wasn't committed until like the signing period. So go to Evansville, got money, a good chunk of it, which is why I made the decision. So go there. And for me, it was one of those things where you show up and you didn't think it was going to be the way you thought it was. Wasn't anything about like the people, friends, anything like that. Like socially, school, everything fine. For me, it was I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I would continue to get better. Like I didn't want to go to school and be an accountant. Like I wanted to play baseball or like that was the whole goal high school going in. And it was one of those things where I showed up and it wasn't what it was supposed to be on paper, I guess, if that makes sense. And it was one of the things where, kind of had like a shoulder flare up and was just like, I can't do this for semesters at this point. And then hopped in the portal, made some phone calls, and, luckily was able to go back to Howard with open arms and then completely changed the pathway I was on because at Evansville, honestly, it was one of those things where I was regressing and then was able to get out. But I like your perspective, though, on what you're chasing, going in NIAC. So if you can keep, elaborating on that, 'cause I'm just very curious to see how this, turns out.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, dude, it was awesome because we actually had a couple guys on Creighton that transferred from NIAC, and they always talk about Herg, who was the head coach there, Travis Hergert, and they're like, dude, like, you got to get with Herg. Like, I'll set up a call with you guys or whatever. Like, everybody who goes there throws harder. Like, we love throwing drive-on balls. Like, I threw them, and this was a position player saying it. I was like, oh shit, like, okay, like, sounds legit. And I know there's a little bit of like gray area with them nowadays, but like as you guys know, like in 2016, like throwing plyo balls was not a thing.
Right.
Like it was not a thing. Like it was like you had to run from class, like do them on your own 5 minutes and then go shag VP. Like it was not welcomed, pretty much.
Yeah, no, it was a frowned upon thing. Same thing. Like my local facility would be like, oh, you're gonna blow out if you throw those. Like your elbow, you give them more. Your elbow's gonna snap in half, and it's like, dude, like old heads. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, and it was amazing because I trained at Driveline again that winter, and that was the first time I actually started lifting like heavy upper body too, because I thought that was bad for me. And so I was lifting and I was throwing a lot and I was just like, man, like I feel really good right now. Like this is like how I should feel. Like this is how it should go. And then, kind of the crossover into NIAC was kind of like a no-brainer. They weren't the closest JUCO. They didn't offer the most money out of junior colleges, I guess. But it was by far like the best fit, I thought. And I still remember the first practice, like we had like an hour to an hour and a half to throw. And guys were just ripping plyo balls. Like everybody knew what they had that day for throwing. And I was like, this is unbelievable.
That's
like, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I literally couldn't believe it. I was like, we're not rushed to throw. Like I don't have to go run to do team defense in 2 minutes. Like I actually have time to throw and do all this stuff. Like this is amazing. And like I'm so thankful for Herg. And just all my experiences there, like still my best friends to this day, are the guys I met at JUCO. But so that spring, I think I made a really big jump. I went from topping 83 to I think I top 90 for the first time. And so, I put on 10, 15 pounds, threw harder, all that stuff. And, this is before, I guess I'll preface this with saying this was before understanding workload monitoring. And this is before you knew about how to truly treat recovery days, or people did, I didn't. And so it was kind of like more is more to me. Like I was like, oh, I'm throwing plyos, I'm throwing them as hard as I can, and my velo is going up. Like I should keep doing this, but like at a higher clip to throw even harder.
Yeah, you're gonna double down.
I'm going to double down. I was like, this is the inputs that are working, so I'm going to double down on them. But
Velo day
obviously
every
the body,
day.
dude, I'm not kidding. That's like what it was. Like, it was like I would throw a bullpen, and then the next day I'd do like a plyo velo because I'm like, I'm going to throw 95.
Of course.
And
Black ball walking windups.
Yep. Oh my God. Good. But yeah, and obviously, whatever matriculated after that, like I ended up getting a partial tear in my UCL. And just looking back at it, it was just so obvious, like why.
Sure.
And I didn't do it the right way. But I got TJ in April. I got TJ April 18th of 2017. Was out the rest of the year, and then I actually got knee surgery July 18th of 2017. That was kind of a lingering thing from a couple years back, and so that following fall, or 2017 fall, I actually wasn't at Nyack. I was at home, and I was just doing rehab at home because I was the whole right side of my arm for that whole summer, or whole right side of my body for that whole summer was pretty much like immobilized. Like I had my arm in a cast and then my right knee in a brace. And so like I couldn't really do anything. And so I knew, I'd probably.
This episode is presented by Rake Baseball Company. If you want the best apparel within the game of baseball, you need to head over to rakebaseballcompany.com and use code CURVE15 to get 15% off. Rake Baseball Company has it all. They have different designs, they have different colors for different teams, and they even offer various apparel for different positions on the field. I personally have worked with Rake Baseball Company on multiple occasions now, and the owner is always taking care of me. So again, do yourselves a favor. Head on over to rakebaseballcompany.com and use code CURVE15 for 15% off. Again, that's CURVE15 for 15% off.
And dude, that was like the best time ever too, because a couple of my friends were back there too. And so it was like me and the boys, I was doing rehab and we were both delivering pizzas, or we're all delivering pizzas at Lil Malnati's, like back in Chicago. Awesome. And so, yeah, we're all like making money on the side while I was like doing my rehab and I was hanging out with them. And so it was kind of like a nice little, it felt like a little side quest in my life, honestly. Like
sure.
It was just so
100%.
It was just so different. And then as I was getting healthier, came back to Nyack the next semester of 2018 spring. And I still wasn't 100% yet, but I wanted to be with the guys. I wanted to be with them during the season. And so finished up my rehab, started my live ABs and all that then. And then once the season ended, I actually trained at P3 for the first time that summer. And, looking back, it's still like right now, like the guys that are working there are all going to be Lord knows where down the road, but they're going to be doing something, working high up in organization or college ball or, continuing just to like push P3 where it's going right now. But I'm just thinking about back in the day, like, when I was there, Forrest Herman was a head throwing coach, or head throwing trainer. Austin Mayu was right there with him. And then you had, Mitch Plasmeyer, who was actually a fifth-year senior. He was a fifth-year senior my sophomore year. And so he was actually training there.
Yeah, you just dropped
summer.
3 guys.
Yeah. No, seriously. It's like, 3 of like one of the smartest like pitching minds that I've been around. Like I got to be with them an entire summer, not even knowing, where they would end up, but like it was just so cool, kind of just like looking back to see like where it started, for them at least. And, working with them, like I really understood like how to segment my days, like how to just not, just lift a lot, throw a lot, pretty much, like how to be a lot smarter about how I did everything, like understand my pitch shapes a little bit more. And I owe those guys a lot. And, they got me back up to, I think I was touching like 87 that summer, still nothing crazy. But I was sitting 85, 87 with 3 pitches I could throw for a strike. And I was ready to compete back at JUCO. And so, going into that fall, I pitched really well all fall. I think I touched 89 once, sat around like 86, 88 with like 3 pitches.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think I got a lot of schools that were like, we just need to see you in the spring, pretty much. Just because, you know, they want a guy who's 90-92, right-hander,
Sure.
typically,
Yep.
right? And so I understood that. I was like, okay, cool. Like, same as ever, I got to throw harder. It is what it is. You know, I'll do what I can. And, you know, we had our scout day as our last weekend. And we had a kid in our team named Evan Reifert, who's with the Tampa Bay Rays. He's a freaking stud. He's a stud. I think he's AAA or AA with the Rays right now. And, you know, he was just scratching the surface back then when we were at JUCO. He was like up to 97, like wipeout slider. And he pitched really well to Puma. And so Coach Woodard, who was at UNC at the time, flew down to Mason City to go see him throw. And as he was seeing Evan throw, he saw me throw. And
Nice.
that's kind of how it happened. And, you know, to this day, it's just like, how the hell did that happen? You know,
You
what I mean? Like,
hijacked
I
it.
still, dude, I literally hijacked it. I was like, it was like a hack or something. I don't know what the hell happened. Like, but, you know, I couldn't believe it. Let alone that he was even like every school pretty much like has told me, I'm going to wait till spring. And then here's a pitching coach at North Carolina that's like, hey, I really enjoyed watching you throw today. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, who set this up? Like, I was
Right.
like, I thought
Yeah.
it was like a prank, honestly. But, you know, knowing Woody and kind of the pitcher he was when he was at Carolina, like, you talk about one of the most like decorated pitchers and coaches in Carolina. Like, he's the winningest player, the winningest pitcher in Carolina history. And this is what he told me over the phone when I told him my reservations about like going there pretty much.
Sure.
He was like, you know, so what happened before, and, you know, what are your concerns moving forward or all that? And I was like, man, like, honestly, like, I just didn't really throw very hard, you know, when I was at this school, and that's still kind of what I'm working on. And he was like, man, like, I threw over 300 innings at Carolina and I was sitting like 80-47. Like, if you can pitch, you can pitch.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think people like I hate to interrupt you, but I think people lose. I think where we're at right now, people lose the perspective of where we were in the years that you're talking about, even 2016 to 2018. Like, we didn't really see this revelation of guys throwing extremely hard in high school at the frequency that we do now, up until just as of late over these past few years. Like, for myself, I was a guy that when I came out of high school, I was 80-82 and I still found my way to a D2 offer. That's probably not happening today. Like, there's enough guys out there that are in that 84, 86, 88 range that are going to be taking those offers now, where, you know, back then it was more, we didn't have the tech, or we didn't have the access to the tech, but it was more based on your pitchability, how you could fit in at the next level, as well as velo. It played a component. I'm not going to say it didn't, but we didn't have the access to the frequency of guys now that throw. Man, we see 17-year-olds that are sitting 93 to 96 now. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, it's nuts. And I was talking to some of the coaches like last year, or just past season 23. I was like, man, this pitching staff is so good. Like, I probably wouldn't have sniffed an inning if I was on the staff this year. And I'm like, that's a good thing. Like, that's a good thing. It's like every year I hope like I'm getting like my chances of playing would have been less and less, you know what I mean? Of like the staff that we have. So yeah, to your point, like, yes, it's, I feel very fortunate. Like I said, you know, lucky, just like how all that transpired and the timing of it. But yeah, I mean, that was the fall, and, you know, ended up committing to Carolina. And then, you know, the spring at JUCO went great. You know, I had a really good year, and, you know, feeling really confident going to Carolina. And so I guess that would have been 2019 fall, first fall at UNC. And fall went great. Pitched really, really well. Arm was feeling good. And kind of going into the spring, I think I lost a lot of weight. I think I lost about 10, 15 pounds, and I started dealing with some shoulder stuff. And so, you know, going in, very much self-inflicted, I would say. I kind of I would say I kind of got away from, what I was doing that made me help me get there in the first place, I should say. And that's not a fault of anybody else, but my own. It was kind of like I kind of let my curiosity take me astray, I would say.
Sure.
I wanted to try something else. I wanted to do different things, and you know, um, I would say baseball on the training aspect too. It doesn't necessarily reward, compulsive actions like that all the
No,
time, and
no, it is not.
that taught me so much actually. For the following year, because it was like, man, it was, you know, I guess if you want to even call it maybe insecurity at some point of just like wanting to really prove that I belong there, right? And trying to do everything I could, but sometimes that can lead you to, doing something different every single day.
Yep.
And, it's kind of like, God, me and my friends talk about this. We're like, if you just like, even if you don't need to work on your back leg, so to speak, right? Like if you work on your back leg, but if you still like show up every day and work on your back leg every day for like 6 weeks, like you're gonna get better.
Yep.
Like when you screw up is when you work on your back leg on Monday, then you work on your front side on Tuesday, and then you work on your arm action on Wednesday, and then you work on a drill you saw on TikTok on Thursday. Like, like that's when you screw yourself,
How do you deal with that as a coach though? Like, because I can imagine that the access these kids have, like you even mentioned TikTok, but the access these kids have to more and more ideologies that are being filtered through their phones. How do you deal with that as a coach to keep them on the consistent path that that you've even experienced is best?
Yeah, I mean, it's just all communication. Like, truthfully, like it's just like
Yeah,
I see them do something, or they'd be like, "Hey, I saw this like online or whatever," and they're like, "I want to try it." And I'll be like, "Why do you want to try it? Like, what is
sure.
this supposed to help you with?" Like, or I'll be like, "Hey, remember, like your strengths is, yada yada. Like this drill can actually pull you away from what you're doing really well. So
Gotcha.
maybe we shouldn't do this." And like, it's kind of like, and sometimes too, I have no idea. Sometimes I have no clue. And so that's also something to, you know, when guys come to you with stuff, like it's okay to just like have no idea what it is. If
Yep.
anything, it's kind of motivating to like want to learn more. But it's a lot better off admitting that than trying to give them some BS explanation that doesn't actually help them. And then
I think
now they're really running astray.
I think they appreciate the honesty too.
I think so. And I know we all would have as a player, right? Like it's
Yes.
almost like it's like it's like players don't really want to be like coddled, they just want to know the truth. Especially at
Yes.
this level, especially when you're, 20 years old plus. Like you don't want your goals are your goals are a lot higher, than just to, I don't know, please the staff or whatever. Like you're trying to get better. And so you need to treat that accordingly and respect that.
I
Yeah.
could
So
not agree more. Honestly, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
yeah. So my
It's
my question for you would be as far as like the recruiting aspect of like what you guys just talked about. So when you guys are going through recruiting and stuff, and you guys do have a set way of doing things, so it's like plyo balls, data driven, going to do a lot of assessments and a lot of player development. So if a guy, let's say, trains a place or does stuff that you guys learn about via like just conversation, it's like okay, this guy's in high school, junior college, whatever is completely different. Is that something that you guys also look for? So for example, like in your case as a player with Woodard, it's like, okay, you came from Nyack, who at the time was probably one of the first bigger JUCOs to take on these new ideologies. And then he was like, okay, obviously, like I'm going to go recruit guys from that area because okay, they're doing the same things that we've been doing. You know what I mean? They have an understanding of it. So from your coaching perspective now, what is it like recruiting with like do you guys try to take guys with the similar ideologies, or is it just like, hey, if you can play and then play? Like how do you work that in with recruiting with guys who have a background of completely other stuff that doesn't fit in like with the Charlotte way that we see from the outside in?
Yeah. I mean, It's interesting because it's like, I think I have, if you want to call it a set belief in a lot of things, just from my own experiences, my own personal wisdom bank of the stuff that I've been through. And, places I've trained at or places guys have trained at. But in terms of like the overall training philosophy and stuff, like I'm pretty agnostic in a way, whereas like it's kind of about just what works. And, when guys come in and they have different training backgrounds, like I try to welcome it as much as possible because it's like collaboration does so many good things. And we have guys on the team that have trained at tread, driveline, P3, like X2, I mean, you name it. And so, whether a guy has zero training background or like an incredibly extensive one, it's kind of just more of an opportunity for everybody to learn from one another. Now, in terms of like what you see, like you're just going to recruit guys that you think can play. Like I have no idea what the guy's training background is or whatnot, when I see them throw, until after, I call them and kind of see what the background is. And I think that there's, it's great when guys have had really good training backgrounds because the bridge to Charlotte is probably a lot easier. Like they can hit the floor running.
100%, exactly.
But I will say that there is also a lot of benefits, especially I'm seeing this fall with some of our arms that haven't had that training background, that have kind of had a new stimulus kind of, added to their repertoire, so to speak, that, they're making those jumps. Like they're like, oh, wow, like this is something that I haven't done before. And like, they're getting better, I guess, faster in a way, because they haven't had that training background previously. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of a give and take, pros and cons to both.
I can only imagine that the kids who don't have the experience and then show up and then they have those massive gains, it only one, you're getting the buy-in from them, of course. But everybody else sees that they kind of got there without the training stimulus. Then they see what they're able to accomplish with it. And that buy-in kind of permeates amongst the staff. And I think that goes a long way into instituting or creating a culture, not only amongst the pitching staff, but I think the team as a whole. And you probably see that on a daily basis.
For sure. It's, I still want to be not weary, but like just cautious because like, big velo jumps and all that stuff, like it's great, but like it can also lead to like you wanting it more and more, and you wanting it. And, you can't always have that foresight, especially, when you see yourself improving and you just understand that like, I do this makes me throw harder. This makes me better. So I'm going to do this multiplied by 5,
Right.
And so, yeah, it's, getting a little off topic here, I guess, but
no, you're good.
Yeah, it's important for them to know. And it is really my job to just like a good example is like recovery days. Like I will like hammer these guys about taking their recovery days as true recovery days until probably like I am blue in the face. Like
Smart.
Like if it is a recovery day, it is a recovery day. Like 30 throws, get out of here. Like that's it. And
we now take a break from this interview to promote one of our supporting sponsors, Minor League Coffee. Started by two brothers currently in minor league baseball, Minor League Coffee has all of your coffee needs. We all know that coffee tastes better when you get the recipe right, all on your own. With all sorts of blends, Minor League Coffee has everything you need to get your day off to the best start possible. Head on over to minorleaguecoffee.com today and use code CURVE5 for 5% off. That's minorleaguecoffee.com, and with code CURVE5, you can get 5% off today. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where I think too, if you can really, let's say, like hammer in on like a true recovery day, it kind of gives guys a little bit more leeway on those like hybrid days or those higher intent days.
Sure.
When they're taking those days in between a lot more seriously and not just going through the motions and not, throwing 60 plus rows on a day where they probably shouldn't be throwing more than 30. So yeah.
Right. And that's a good segue back into your story too, which is where we originally started. But you talked about how you were a victim of that, maybe self-inflicted, but you were a victim of that where you saw the gains and you were like, I'm going to throw this black ball as hard as I can, and I'm going to every single day, and that's going to make me throw harder. That's not what you actually did, but you get the point. I guess we could transition back into your story. So you went to UNC. Obviously you had a fair amount of success there, and I hope I'm not glossing over any time at UNC, but how did you end up transferring from UNC to UNC Charlotte?
Yeah, it was, man, like I said, so, Woody recruited me there. And then, when I got there, he went to Charlotte to become the head coach. And, 2 years at Carolina was like, it was awesome. Like, it was awesome. Like, I love the guys there, love the coaching staff. I love Chapel Hill. And, it's my alma mater and I love it. But I think there was kind of a point where it was like, it was more of an outside of baseball thing, I would say. Kind of like, I'm kind of ready to get away from it a little bit. I don't necessarily want to say burnt out, but it was kind of just like, I kind of wanted to test my life outside of baseball in a way, because I was just so engulfed in it 24/7. And so I actually didn't even know if I was going to play baseball again after that. Like, I was like, might go work or whatnot. I really wasn't sure. And then, I was like, last day of the portal, actually, I entered, just kind of to see what would happen. Because, the goal really wasn't even really baseball. It was more just like grad school and, using it to get a good education and then kind of just seeing what happens. And then Charlie called, and it was like, all right, like, I think the first call I got was from either, Coach Bick or Miney. And, we talked for however long and talked about all the stuff they were doing at Charlotte and how they were training and really everything. And I guess you can kind of say it kind of rekindled my, just a different love for baseball that I haven't felt in a long time, especially on the training side, like, on the playing side and the baseball experience side and all that, like, it was, I had all that covered. But the pure, like, data training, using the data, like, this is how we're going to get you better. Like, it kind of felt like invigorating to me again. And I haven't felt that in a while. I didn't feel that for a bit of time. And so, committed to Charlotte, went there, and it was like everything I could have asked for more. And I didn't end up playing professional baseball, but I know for a fact that my last year at Charlotte as a, 24-year-old grad student, from that year alone, I felt like I was able to reach my ceiling and get the most out of myself. And that was kind of like all I could have asked for. And I don't know, it was just an awesome experience. Like, it was like, I'm still living in Charlotte, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was like playing for Woody, playing for Miney, and living in the city. Like, it was kind of just like, dude, this is like, well, I didn't realize, it was just so different from what I experienced before. And, I guess that kind of led me into the coaching thing I was like, okay, like, this is awesome. Like, Division I baseball practices can be structured this way.
Right.
The information that is given to you can be done this way. Like, how we use it can be done this way. I was kind of like oh shit, like, all right, like, this is how it should be done. Like, that's how I felt. I was like, this is how it should be done. And I think I kind of inquired a little bit more about coaching as, like, maybe the spring went on, my year at Charlotte, and everything that happened in the summer, and and then being, offered a pitching coordinator job, it kind of felt like it lined up for that, in the best way possible. And so, had my first year last year, a lot of learning experiences for sure that first year.
Without a doubt.
Still learning a ton. It's kind of like I look back and I'm like, why was I so stressed about this? Or like, why was I doing that? That's so like, cringe or whatever. And I hope I say the same thing about myself, next year about myself this year. And so it's kind of like just continuing to learn and continuing to surround myself around, really passionate, intelligent people that have very common goals. And so, yeah, that kind of leads me to where I am now.
So I completely agree. I think the only way to better yourself, like you said right there at the end, is to surround yourself with people who you would consider to be smarter than yourself or on the same level of you, as curious as you are about the game and its advancement. I think that's incredibly admirable of you to do and to recognize as well. I am slightly curious. Was there a thought that pro ball might be on the table throughout your senior year?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, it was probably more me just being like, I don't know if you want to call it competitive,
Sure.
and like being like, dude, like I'm going to find a way, like, kind of
Been
that
there.
mentality. But it wasn't actually really until I dropped down. And so I actually dropped down halfway through the spring. I did a little bit at Carolina, but didn't really transfer the way it did at Charlotte, I would say. Like I did it at Carolina to create a different look, and it was like 83, 85. And then the first time I dropped down to Charlotte, it was 87, 89. And I was like, oh, okay. Like this is like, you can play with this a little bit.
Yeah.
Was slider was really good from down there. I threw it like 70% of the time. And, that going into the draft league kind of resurged my, I guess, like, aspirations to play pro ball from that. And, when I was in the draft league, I was like, that was my only goal, truly. It was just to get signed and see what I could possibly do. And I was like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can this summer to get there. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And I was very, very, very content with that. And so, as summer was dwindling down and then the coaching opportunities came up, I guess kind of that's where those two roads intersected, which led me into coaching. And, I actually think earlier in the summer, I was talking to Coach Bick, and he was talking about like coaching, and I was like, honestly, man, like I'm more excited thinking about coaching in the future than I am playing. And he was like, "That's your answer." he was like, "That's your answer. Boom, that's your answer."
Okay.
And so I think I had that seed planted in my head too as I was playing. Even though I still really wanted to play pro ball, like I knew my body can only take me so far, but I felt like my mind could take me a lot farther.
Sure.
Just in terms of like actual, like literal capacity of what it could do. I felt like what I could learn and the things I could grasp, the people I could surround myself with, all that is kind of like infinite in a way. Obviously there's still some boundaries versus where my physical limitations can only take me so far. And so I think that's what was exciting to me. And yeah, I mean, I guess I could talk about all that for forever, but I don't want to keep spieling. But
This is what this is for, dude. You can keep spieling all you want.
yeah,
I think so. One of the things, as we kind of wrap up here, one of the things I'm interested about touching on the next time we're on together. You casually dropped this right in the last answer about how you dropped down, and I think I'd like to dive into the next time we're on about how you coach those guys and how their training programs look a little bit different. I think that's really interesting. I think that's something that's going to become increasingly popular, and the more data we get on it, obviously the process of training those guys will improve. But like I said, we are planning to have you back on. And I think Not that this is any level of a formal announcement, but I think what we're planning to do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're going to have you on quite a few times throughout the season, correct? We talked about doing that, finding time, maybe not every week, maybe not even every other week, but periodically throughout the season, kind of update us how things are going. We're excited to learn about how you guys do, because everything that we talked about here today and all the tech you guys implement, the structure that you have with the training process, the reach you have with your guys and the buy-in you have amongst your program, we don't see anything other than constant success for you guys this year. So we would like to stay updated on that as long as you're willing to do that still. And that would be really exciting for us. Honestly, I think being able to follow your story, not even only for us, but the listeners too, I think that's going to be really cool. I think that's going to make for some really cool content. And I think your story is one, you and Charlotte baseball, I think that story is one very well worth sharing.
I appreciate that. And yes, I do plan on being here multiple times in the future as well.
Good. I hope you had some fun today. This was actually really fun for us. We learned a hell of a lot about you. I hope that you had a good time on here today, because we certainly did. And like I said, man, we're looking forward to having you back on.
No, me too. And thank you for having me on. Let me, just talk about myself. It felt like for so long. I really hope to learn a lot more from you guys as well, because you guys have all had really interesting experiences. And especially in the organizations that you're a part of, like there is like a wealth of knowledge between you two. And I know that a lot of it can help transition into helping our guys. And so selfishly, thank you. And hope to learn from you guys as well.
We got time for that, dude. We got all the time in the world.
Awesome. That sounds good, man.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Yep. See you, boss.
See you guys.